to the young seeker of knowledge, the word of the teacher and parent, the word of the elder in state, was the word of God on earth. It was a symbol of knowledge, experience, wisdom. The student, one of the fortunate few, chosen for higher learning, to take over the reins of a society, learned through the complete subjugation of his will to the Guru and humble obedience to the elders. This was the old order, the system that prevailed for centuries. As man's horizons of knowledge expanded, bringing vast social, political and economic changes to the world, a uniform system of liberal education evolved, a system that gave birth to ideologies and leaders that led many peoples and nations of the world to fight for their rights. India won her independence in 1947. The child of independence was unique to India after many centuries of bondage to feudal landlords, kings and foreign dominations. A child born with freedoms that were only dreams to his parents and the generations of Indians before him. That child is a young student now, and for the first time in the history of the world, he has begun to raise his fist in anger against the old order. Professor Chari, why are students today so rebellious? Can their attitude be justified? And if so, what can be done about this problem?
The student interest on the campus is on the increase because we are tending to not to look at those problems as they arise, but neglect them till they reach a serious proportion. Also, we have large numbers of staff members who preach but do not practice. These things make boys lose their faith in the staff. There is a very big breakdown of communication between the staff and the students, and this also leads to strikes and disturbances on the campus. These disturbances have reached such a serious proportion on some of the campuses that it is high time that we take a very serious note of it and attempt to do something in the matter. It requires immediate and urgent attention of all the authorities concerned.
Mr. Adarkar, what do you feel about the communication generation gap between you and your son? How do you manage to bridge this gap?
Yes, there is indeed this gap. My son and I move in orbits of our own. We come together, but not for any serious discussion of our respective points of view. But to my mind, this is immaterial, whether or not there is an understanding between the father and son. In other words, so long as the son discovers and fulfills his mission, the father is happy, whether or not the two understand each other.
Vivek, what are your comments?
In our case, the gap is a lot narrower. It could be about 20 or 25 years in my father's case. In my case, it can be cut down to almost 5, owing to our exposure to our media. And in the midst of these changes, you can't help but get the feeling that you have been brought into this world too early.
Out of the massive population of India's youth eligible for education, about 78% go through primary school, some 45% reach secondary education, and 33% proceed towards matriculation. Only 2.9% enter the universities. 2 million out of 58 million potential students for higher education reach towards graduation. Even so, the universities are overburdened and in financial difficulties. Not enough money required for the inputs to meet the ever-growing demands of students who have more than doubled in the last 10 years. This is a world problem. In most universities, the faculty-student ratio is fast widening. Too many students, too few capable teachers. The standards of education are on the decline. One of the reasons put forward for student discontent is this.
Well, if you would like me to give only one reason, I would say that this is due to the fact that the kind of students that are coming to the colleges and universities now are vastly different from the students who came to the colleges and universities, say 10 or 15 years ago. Formerly, students came here mostly from families with a background of academic culture. Now we have students coming from the rural areas, and we have students coming from the working class amongst the urban sections. The universities have done very little to understand their needs and provide for them.
Economic pressures, rising cost of living, low income, large unplanned families lead to the development of an insecure and angry student on whom the future of his family depends on his success at the university level and thereafter. Many students feel that the university has become a dispensary of dead knowledge, routine information, obsolete curricula, set lectures, and outdated pattern of tests. The method of assessing a student's progress through competitive exams based on a few set type of questions at the end of the term leads to a type of student who can pass these exams by cramming at the last moment, failing which take a chance at cheating. The result is that his qualifications on paper do not meet up to the requirements of the waiting world outside the campus. Thousands of students whose applications to enter universities are rejected due to lack of space find the situation intolerable. On the other hand, thousands who graduate cannot find suitable jobs. It is estimated that by 1975, 60 million educated youth will remain unemployed. The student feels trapped.
Today has never had it so good by way of diversification of courses and syllabi and the expanding opportunities for knowledge and employment. And yet, there is unrest due to frustration. Perhaps society is responsible for this state of affairs. There is denigration of values. Public morality is low. Civic consciousness is absent. And a sense of direction wanting. Little wonder then that we have among us young men and women who are angry.
The revolution must and will come. This society will admit of only small change, little change, which will not alter its structural basis, private property. Any attempt to change this structural basis will be fought by the society, will be pressed through its state machinery, and this kind of repression can be overcome only through violence. Through the gun, I believe in the revolution.
The face of the university has changed a great deal within a generation. The student's preoccupation in politics reflects his mood. He feels he cannot leave the affairs of his country in the hands of the elder politicians anymore. And at times, he makes use of his collective strength and freedom without a proportionate sense of responsibility. This is a meeting of student leaders, senior faculty members and the Vice-Chancellor. Some of the arguments are cooperative, constructive. Some other dialogues sound like this.
But you do not understand the problems we face today. When I attended college, there were only 22 students appearing for the BSc degree. The massive waves of students that come to the university today makes me feel that mothers are giving birth to 19-year-old students. For example, take the situation prevailing in 1948. 1947, 1948. Every time we ask you to face our problems, you hide behind 1947 or when I was a student. We are in the 70s now. We want to solve our problems now. Who the hell cares about 1947 or when you were a student? Talk about now.
The students' interest in politics has reared another ugly head, the politicians' interest in the students. Are the student unions of various universities encouraging constructive activities and safeguarding the rights, or are they being exploited by politically ambitious individuals?
I feel that most of the college elections which are being conducted are not politically motivated mostly. You can count on them those who are standing on political party basis. And I have seen most of them getting defeated because of their playing over politics in the college campuses. And I have experienced, most of the students have realized that politics does not have a place in the college campuses. And most of them have been defeated by these, and I feel that these politicians, once the college union is elected, they try to catch hold of them and make use of them for their dirty politics and then leave them high and dry. Neither the student acquires political status nor he is anywhere in his academic career.
And yet the politicians have taken their toll of students and will continue to do so for their own end. In spite of it, the students continue to dabble in politics. To an inquisitive mind, with the mass media available to his generation, the student cannot help but involve himself with what is happening in his own country and the world around him. And he cannot help but draw his own conclusions, form his own opinions, resort to actions born of passionate spontaneity that reflects his age and times. Individually, he's a thinker. Collectively, he's a mob. And as a mob, he has caused irreparable damage to both people and property. faculty members have been garrowed, threatened, beaten up. A vice-chancellor has been done to death. Clashes between students representing different political parties have resulted in deaths to disfigurement for life. Many students appearing in this film have been moved to hospital in critical conditions. One student has had his face smashed in with heavy steel bars.
Violence attains nothing. Social revolution is necessary, I agree, but not through violence, because violence entails only further violence, death, destruction and pestilence. So these people who propound violence, they are only pseudo-intellectuals. They are not really involved in the subject. They are not involved with the people.
The system of our society, of which the university is a part, is rotten to the core. It cannot be changed by words, votes, speeches, gherraus, etc. History will bend only when faced with a gun. Thus, total change can be brought about by ruthless, systematic violence of the masses only.
I think all this talk of revolution sounds only too familiar. I'm not trying to cast aspersions on anybody's sincerity, but I do think that there is a time in everybody's lives, our parents no less than us, when you do feel revolutionary. But unfortunately, this revolutionism tends to go out of the window as soon as you start worrying about paying the gas bills and feeding the kids. Where are all your red-hot revolutionaries of yesterday? As likely as not, most of them are in cushy, air-conditioned office jobs today and thanking the Lord for their happy lots. No, I don't think revolution is the answer. I think it would be more realistic, much more realistic, to depend on slower constitutional means for change. With them, I think you can have all the revolutionary changes you want without the unnecessary destruction of a revolution.
Our society has become rotten, and this rottenness has spread into every facet of our lives, including into our universities. Today, we have no other course left to us open now. We have raised our voices in protest. Our protest has remained unheard. We have marched in procession. Our processions have been broken up by the police. We have erupted continuous violence, and our violence has been met with a greater violence. Today, what is left to us but to organize ourselves and meet violence with violence?
The world has seen fantastic changes within a generation. Man has walked on the moon and brought back rocks. The Guru is no more God, and the elders are not infallible. Young India is turning from the temples to technology in search of the future. The student is young. His problems are many. From his generation will emerge tomorrow's leaders. He will not remain silent till his voice is heard. His successes will nourish the generations to follow. His failures will form tomorrow's lessons. The striving to bridge the gap between what exists and what is yet to be continues. The search for another tomorrow has no end, only infinite beginnings.